lot of mentors and a lot of coaches that were able to guide me and give me a lot of tips as far as strength training. I've read a lot of books. I've actually met a few people that have written some of the books that I've read or articles that I've read in the past. And I've been very fortunate and very lucky that they've been very open about training with me. I don't know if you follow a guy called Real World Tactical. His name's Tony Seminot.
No.
Look him up, and his training is
what was his name called?
Tony Seminot, and his tag is Real World Tactical. Look this guy up. This guy is an absolute animal, and he's just. I actually ended up training with his coach, and because they train out here. The name is Knockout Zone, KO Zone. That's the name of the gym, and let me tell you, these guys are absolute animals. I'm talking about as far as fighting, strength, powerlifting. I mean, everything is offered at this gym. It is like everything you would expect in a gym. It is like well-rounded. Some of the guys that train there, as far as martial arts, a lot of UFC fighters go in there and get their ass kicked by some of these guys and train with them because of the fact that these guys are just that good. Like I'm not bullshitting. And these guys are just that good. And I've been very lucky that I've been able to train with a lot of these people. I've been around a lot of great people to push me in that sense. And so in that same way, I like to push others.
Right. Absolutely. Hey, Mitch, you wouldn't be allowed in a Planet Fitness.
No, they'd probably kick me out. They kick people out when you can't even bring not that I'm the guy that brings like a jug of water in there, like a gallon of water, but you can't even bring a gallon of water into Planet Fitness without hitting I think it's called the lunk alarm or something like that, where they hit an alarm and they ask you to leave, and it's like, oh my God, like I don't understand it. I really don't. So, but hey, to each their own, man. To each their own. I don't hate if that's your thing and you need a form of getting started, then hey, by all means, without any judgment. If you're a little bit more reserved, everybody's different. Everybody's experience is going to be a little different, and we all start somewhere. I don't think it should include like pizza parties and things like Planet Fitness does, but nevertheless, hey, if that's your thing, I mean, go for it. So that's
right after a solid workout. I have some pizza, huh?
I mean, hey, post workout, I mean, I can justify almost anything. So I love to eat. Let me tell you something. I eat a lot. My boss, he's a bigger dude. He's probably damn near about 300 pounds. So he's a big. He's not 100% fat. He's bulkier, and him and his brother are about 300 pounds. And I can eat more than both of them, almost combined. So so it's funny. I love to eat. So I can justify almost eating anything after a workout. So
how much are you weighing right now, Mitch?
I weigh, honestly, I'm probably about between 205 and 210 right now. I'm a lighter weight, so but consider the fact that also I'm a double amputee, as you know. Right. So I'm missing my lower extremity. So maybe I'd probably weigh in at about maybe 2.25. I'd probably put myself at about 2.25 at that point. So give or take, because I still have some of it left. It's just from about the knee down. So give or take, I always say about 2.25. I had about 15 pounds and say about 2.25.
Right. Yeah, Mitch, I want to talk about we're about to get it started right now. The double amputee, like your fitness too, because I like to show. I like to talk about prison stuff, but I always like to talk about the afterlife and what you're very passionate about. So for the people, it's truly an honor, Mitch, to have you on here, man. Like we've been going back and forth. Very understanding for the both of us.
We're only 3 hours of time difference, and working jobs and living life, and so there's only this crazy thing called life, so that kind of gets a little inconvenient at times. 100%.
Right, absolutely. But it's truly an honor, man, Mitch, to have you on here. This is gonna be a good one. For the people that don't know, Mitch is a double amputee. Amputee, right?
Yeah, amputee, whatever, however you want to call it. They'll get the idea.
It doesn't look like it because from the up, his upper body, he's a freaking Haas piece. If you haven't seen, he's bigger than your average. Let's say your average linebacker. I'd say he's flexing his forearm right now. No,
I'm not flexing it. Yeah, this will be flexing, but not flexing it just yet.
But I want to get into this, Mitch. Get into a little background of yours, and then for the people that don't know you. Yeah.
100%. Let's get into it, Sid. Number one, all the respect in the world for what you're doing here, man. I believe your platform is going to take off. You've been very adamant. You know, people say, you know, you can attribute some of it to luck, but luck is also where opportunity meets timing. And you've been nailing it out of the park, because a lot of the guys that you've been able to bring on here are some pretty influential members of social media. And as TikTok kind of becomes a bigger thing, and the exponential growth of some of these individuals that you've seen on TikTok, you've been able to get a lot of them in there. And so a lot of them kind of transition to YouTube. I know, obviously, for YouTube purposes of a lot of these longer videos like the one we're going to do now, it becomes a little more beneficial. So I know that what you're doing in that aspect kind of translates more over to a YouTube, but a lot of these guys that are kind of up and coming, you've been able to secure an interview with, man. And
luckily, yeah, like you, my man.
Yeah, okay. I'm not half of what some of these guys are, but forgive me, I just had a nasty burp. But that protein. But so, like I said, you've been able to secure a lot of influential members, and so I hope to be one of those one day. But you've been
absolutely, you are right now, man. Come on now.
And I also what I have the utmost respect for is that you're coming at it from strictly a positive. There's no drama, there's no nonsense. This is all, and it's unfortunate that in a lot of social media, what takes off in views is just like drama. You know, people want to see it. People want to see the downside, the bad side. I can sit there and tell prison stories all day, but if I don't tell you what I was able to make out of that, then what am I really justifying here? What am I really glorifying? There's no glorifying this. This is me telling you who I became at the bottom. You know, who I was at the bottom. You know, because at the end of the day, if you're everything you're going through is a life lesson for you and for anybody else who may be in a similar position that you were in, that you found yourself in. So, and that reminded me, because initially when we had first communicated, I told you, I'm like, Sid, I'm like, you're interviewing all these guys. I said, there's got to be something behind it. I said, you got to start getting your story out there. Now, don't be too selfish with it, because, you know, don't hold that shit in, because other people need to hear it. So in that same way, I started to get my message out. And so I passed that message on to you. I know that you're getting the message of others out. Don't wait too long to put your own out there, brother, either. So, because there may be somebody out there that needs to hear it, that needs to hear what you're trying to say. It may be one person, but nevertheless, you might have changed that person's life and you don't even know it.
Right. Wise words. I appreciate you, Mitch. Thank you, man.
Always, man. Always, brother. So I'll get into a little bit about myself. Now, coming from that ex-con background, I went in at 17 and I got out at 26. So I was sentenced to 10 years. I'll just go over some of the brief fun facts over here. The same guy who prosecuted Casey Anthony was the same guy who prosecuted me. The charges that I went in for were conspiracy to first-degree murder, solicitation to first-degree murder, and tampering with a witness to hinder truthful testimony. Long story short, they said that I was trying to get the witnesses killed to a murder case that happened to be a former friend of mine who committed the murder originally. That was how everything kind of stemmed. There was a jailhouse snitch, rat, whatever you want to call him, that ended up calling the tips line and ended up having the whole scenario set up as though he was misleading this guy into believing that he was going to hire a hitman to really take care of the witnesses while he was in jail, so that they would have no more case on him anymore. He fell for that like an idiot, and that's how it goes, for whatever reason. And unfortunately, I got roped into the mix because conspiracy is a charge that it's so vague that you can be talking about something, you can have knowledge about something, and you don't provide that information to the authorities, then you're technically, by definition, you are in conspiracy under an element that's called willful blindness, meaning you're willfully turning a blind eye when in reality you're witnessing something to this and you're not, so by definition, by technicality, I can't argue the fact that I wasn't guilty. And it's an unfortunate set of circumstances. They should have never happened to begin with. Sorry that they happened. and I deeply apologize to anyone that was affected as a result of my stupidity, as a result of my bad decisions, any poor thinking on my part, even as far as, associations, because I stopped really hanging out with this guy. And eventually he ended up getting himself locked up. But how it ended up was that obviously he was locked up, and he had a couple cars. So obviously you're locked up, bro. Like, you don't need your car. So I'll tell you what, I will provide you money, because I'm sure you need money for lawyer fees, etc. Whatever you may need it for, commissary, canteen, whatever. I'll take the car because I'm 17 and about to go into senior year. I'll take the car off your hands. I'll buy it from you, And so he just ended up trying to use the money to go ahead and hire this hitman. So that was how I got roped into this. Long story short. So 17, go in. It's a long and it's also short 10 years. I tell people because I did longer than some, and I did shorter than others, an amount of time as far as sentencing was concerned. So I know people that have done more time than me. I know people that have done less time with me. I don't hold it against you. Your time is your time. Whatever you learn from that, I hope you learn from it. But learn from that experience and go from there. Move forward. And so I've been out over 6 years now. Over 6 years. Last month made 6 years. So now it's over 6 years. And so I'll get into a little bit of how I came up with the ex-con to icon thing. Was that it always registered with me once I saw the Cali Muscle book. And so I was like, man, that title is really great, man. I love the message that sends, that that it's not over, that you can still continue to live a great life. You can still show the world that your message is a little bit different. It's not, you've become a changed person. You went through those experiences and you became a better individual because of those experiences. And it's not an easy task to accomplish out here. But I think that's changing. I see a little bit more of an opening. I feel a little more acceptance as far as that's concerned. I feel a lot of people are a little more willing to give a second chance. But initially I ran from that title. I ran from anything that associated me with jail or prison when I first got out for the first few years. And I'll tell you why, because it just wasn't a good feeling sitting there being told that you're not good enough to flip the fries to make the fries at McDonald's, or flip burgers at Burger King.
Right.
It didn't feel real good when you go to apply for a minimum wage job and they say that your background check came back and you're not eligible even to make minimum wage. And so there are some hard obstacles that you'll end up having to overcome, but it'll teach you a lot of things about yourself and about your resolve, and whether or not you have what it takes to continually survive out here. Because as we both know, it becomes kind of a revolving door for many. Many people return back to prison for a lot of the same reason that I just don't think that they have what it takes to get out here, or they're institutionalized. There's a number of different X factors here that we could discuss potentially, but I think that a lot of times the easier route becomes going back to prison. As backwards as that sounds, I think it becomes an easier alternative returning back to that lifestyle. And so I fought tooth and nail continually, and to maintain employment, to maintain standards by which I wanted to set as an ex-con, but I wanted to get away from that label. And so from going from ex-con to icon was just something that really registered with me. So I'll tell you a little bit about what I've done. I've always been into physical fitness, as you mentioned, and that was what grounded me. That was what continually taught me and kept me humble while I was on the inside. That was definitely my biggest thing. That was my biggest therapy for getting through that 10-year sentence. Number one, you're in a better mood because you got endorphins flowing. You're looking better, so you're constantly preparing for when I get out, man, I'm just gonna look this good when I get out, et cetera, et cetera. So you continually feed off of that image, and you use that image for fuel. Like I said, you're in a better mood. You're in better health. You're in better conditions for yourself. So, and a lot of times when you're inside, a lot of times you're away from a lot of those things that were dragging you down. Obviously, you got negative circumstances in there, and if you fall into the wrong crowd, if you fall into the wrong atmosphere, if you find yourself in the wrong situation, of course, it can still be negative because prison can be just a negative place in general. I mean, not everybody's in there for, being humble and, singing too loud in the choir. Right. So it can be a negative situation already, but if you're able to turn that into a positive situation, you'll come out all the better. So I wanted to make a big change on that. And so that was why, a lot of people had told me, they're like, Mitch, you really got to. So once they learned a little bit more about me, once I had come into a little bit of my own, because I didn't really know who I was when I got out here. I knew after almost 10 years in prison who I was in prison, but that wasn't relevant. That wasn't a reality for life out here. And that wasn't really an accurate representation or preparation for what it's really like to get out with this stereotype labeled on you. Right. And so as I got a little bit, as I made my way into the world, it started with, it started with a job washing dishes. That was my first real job, was washing dishes. And I was happy to get that job because I had filled out hundreds of applications. And like I told you, like McDonald's, Burger King, you're denied from these places. And it's like, oh my God, like really, like, oh my God. So it was a struggle that I had went through for almost a couple months. And then finally what I did was, I enrolled in a trade school, and that trade was air conditioning. So I live in South Florida, where it might be cool like for a week or two at the end of in winter. So the rest of the time, it's on average 90 to 100 degrees. It's hot. So when your AC goes out, it's not a matter of if, it's when can you get this thing fixed. So I'm like, you know what? I live in South Florida. I need to do something that I know that I'll at least constantly have work in, because obviously I have this background check. So it's like, you know what? I live in South Florida. What is a constant need here? Air conditioning. And also, fun fact, because of the fact that probably about 90% of prisons in Florida don't have air conditioning. So many of those years I lived without air conditioning. So all the more for me, that message was just like ingrained, and it's like, okay, air conditioning. So that was what I ended up doing. That's what I do now for my full-time job. I work about 6 days a week doing that, alongside personal training and online coaching as well. I'm trying to get a little more into that. I'm not quite as educated on it and about the process, but I'm learning. And so I continued on in that path, and I continued on and kind of shared some of the ways that worked for me, that I was met with success with, as far as obtaining employment, as far as, making moves that helped an individual that found themselves like in the shoes that I happened to be in. And so that was, like I said, that was for me, like securing a job, as far as housing, as far as anything else is concerned, as far as, when you're meeting somebody for the first time and you're dating, and it's like, oh, hey, listen, by the way, in about 2006, I caught these charges associated with murder. And so, people look at you and it's like, typically it's like, oh, okay.
They never think that though until you tell them.
And that's the thing. And I didn't want to portray too much of that image anyway. And like, I got a buddy of mine, and he's got like, he obviously, tattoos are another thing that are, that have blown up in people, but this guy's got tattoo. A buddy of mine has like tattoos on his throat all the way down. He just rings off like, oh yeah, if you haven't been to prison, then you will be soon. But not to say anything, but I make fun of him for that all the time. I dig at him for that, and I'm like, bro, like you didn't want to, like, you didn't even want a chance. I'm like, what are you going to be, either an auto mechanic or work at a tattoo shop? I used to mess with him all the time, just because we still mess with each other like that. And so, but I wanted to get away from that stereotype. But now, as more people have gotten to know me, and I've branched out, and even within, employment opportunities, it's become a lot better. And I've learned a lot of the ways that others before me have, because I'm not the only person to get out of prison and make something of it. So I followed a lot of the routines that I knew worked for me and that had worked for others before me. And so I want to continue to share that message. And so, but a little bit more than that was, I wanted to go above and beyond. Right. I didn't want to I don't want to just sit here and settle for sort of mediocrity, I'd say. I don't want to settle for mediocre. I don't want to settle for just being okay. I want to be extraordinary. I don't want to just be ordinary. I want to be extraordinary. So my way of wanting to do that was, at first, I applied for American Ninja Warrior, and I applied to get on that because I used to watch that like towards the end of my sentence was when it came out, and so I watched that. I'm like, man, I could do that, I could do some of that stuff, and so I even went to a gym that was like built, set up for like just like an American Ninja Warrior course. They had a bunch of different stations where you do a lot of that stuff. And I was like, man, I was like, I'd love to do that, and then just, and that would give me kind of a platform to show people, what the human mind can do, that nothing is impossible. So for me being, like I said, a double amputee and an ex-con, it was just like, man, I could really set the standard, to show what the human mind is capable of. If you're only willing to sacrifice and put it in your mind that there are no excuses, there is no limitations, just with the ones that you create. Right. And I didn't make it there. I didn't make it onto the actual show. I had submitted, and then so fast forward a little bit, and The Rock came out with the show, the Titan Games, and so it was similar, but it was a display of sort of obstacle courses on sort of like an American Gladiators platform. You might be too young to remember that, but it was like you versus another person, and basically it's in feats of strength, and you're going against this individual. And so The Rock created this whole platform for it. And the season 1 winner was actually, I have a picture with him. I met him not too long ago. Was a former inmate. And so I was like, man, that's an awesome message. Yeah. His name's Jean Louise. I can't remember exactly, but I ended up meeting him over at Knockout Zone, funny enough. And, so I was like, man, that's perfect, man. I was like, I'd really be able to showcase. I got in contact with them, and they were like, yeah, send us more information. And then I was like, oh my God, like my mind was blown. I was like, oh man, I'm going to be on this show. I was like, I really got to get cranking up. And they didn't call me back for whatever reason. And so
they didn't want you to show out.
Yeah, I guess so. But I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man. So that was actually when I got into editing. I know you've seen some of my work, but I got kind of into editing and like thumbnails and video editing and things like that, because I was like, you know what? In order for me to be able to stand out, I have to separate myself and really showcase what I'm able to do, why I'm able to do it, and come out with this story. And at this point, like I said, it's a few years of being out, and everybody's like, man, Mitch, you really got to start getting your story out there, man. You really have to, because, I mean, it could really help somebody. And I was like, you know what? I do need to. And my wife, that was when my wife told me, she's like, you should go. I know you think it's just like dances and like, stupid little things here, but you should really get it out there on TikTok. And so it's like, I was kind of skeptical at first. I'm like, maybe I'll try it. So I'm like, TikTok, I don't really feel like, whatever. And so one day before work, I just got done training a couple clients early in the morning. And so I'm about to go to work. It's about 7. And so I'm in my truck and I'm like, you know what? Let me make a little intro for this. And then sure enough, throughout the day, like my phone's blowing up and I'm just like, what the hell's going on here? And, it ended up getting like 450,000 views at the end of, towards the end. And I'm like, golly. So I think I ended up getting shadow banned a couple times because I posted a few things that were reality as far as prison is concerned, but a little too much as far as TikTok's community guidelines. So my views have been down since, but it's not something I'm really sweating. I know eventually, the stories will break through, and it'll reach whoever it's intended to reach. And that much I'm confident in. And like I said, if it's a lesser audience, the thing is that I'm able to engage with those individuals that actually need to speak with me or want to speak with me. So if it's less people, then I'm not really opposed to that, because at the end of the day, if I'm helping somebody, I'm probably able to better assist that individual, because I'm able to, if I had like millions of followers, what's to say, I wouldn't overlook somebody that was actually reaching out and trying to contact me for something, So I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I really started to get my story out, which is why when you reached out to me, of course, I was like, yeah, hell yeah, let's do it, man. And so, like I said, we've been trying to coordinate a time and place after that. but I'm gonna try again. I want to get really good at editing. I really want to get, I really want to showcase some more of my workouts, and really showcase that lifestyle of what I'm able to do and what I was able to turn everything around from.
Right.
And how I was able to turn this, like I said, I'll share some prison stories just because they're funny at the time. But for the majority, 90% of the time, I sit there and say, now, think about this story and think about how the fact that you would have never had to go through this if you just stayed your ass out of prison. Because all it takes is one bad decision. It takes a half a second to change your entire life, and that's just the fact of the matter. So, I encourage people to go on, be the best individual that they want to be, and not for anything else aside for you and for your family, so that you can be a better individual. Because if you're a better individual to yourself, that's going to translate over into every aspect of your life. If you feel better about yourself, you're going to work better for a job, that you may want to work for. Or if you want to work for yourself, you're going to be a better entrepreneur because you're able to push yourself better. You're going to be a better husband. You're going to be a better father. You're going to be a better, son to your parent. All these things translate over from just you. So I challenge people to push themselves, not only in the gym, but I want to learn some of the limitations that they have. As a personal trainer and online coach, not just online, I coach a couple people in person as well. But I want to find out what limits you. What is it that you're holding back on? What are your weaknesses? Because I want to make those your strengths. So in that same way of working out, I translate that over into so many aspects of life. I want to turn those weaknesses into strengths. We're going to hammer them away, and they're going to hurt for a while, and it might hurt when I touch on these subjects, just like it hurts when you're not able to lift a certain amount. But we're going to get there. We're going to get there. We're going to work on those weaknesses until they become strong points. And so I believe in lifting people up. There's enough. Don't get me wrong. Now I believe in breaking people down, because that's exactly what building muscle is it's ripping it apart so that it grows back stronger. And these are lessons that I learned in prison. And so a lot of times some of these stories are experiences that broke me down to the core. But you know what? I was able to rebuild, and I was able to come back stronger as a result of them. So that's my message to everybody: is break down that old you. The new you is gonna come with a fucking price, and that price is the old you. That is that old lifestyle is exactly what that's gonna come down to, and that's the cost of it, and that's the cost of continuing to better yourself and for yourself at the end of the day, because it's just you. This isn't a dress rehearsal. This is life. Life is happening for you, not to you. At the end of the day, do you want to sit back and look back at the pain of regret? They say discipline weighs ounces, but regret weighs a ton. So if you can sit there and discipline yourself now, by God, it's gonna reduce the pain of looking back and just So at the end of the day, it's up to you to make it happen, because, like I said, life is happening for us right before our very eyes. We only get one shot. We get one shot at this life. Whatever you believe in after is entirely up to you. I mean, I'm not here to negate or judge on that, but the fact of the matter is this life is happening right now. So why wouldn't we sit here and take the best opportunities that we have? Why not go for everything we ever wanted? Why sit there and live with the pain of regret? I say go for it, man. I say go for everything that you ever dreamed of. I mean, I'm not, within a positive influence. Obviously, I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you to drink like you did every night, like last night. You know what I mean? So don't sit there, not like that. It's like, oh yeah, Mitch told me, you only live once. I'm just gonna get hammered again tonight. Because guess what? Not in that aspect. I'm just talking about, I'm talking about within responsibility and within reason and within the law, because of my own background. So,
That's
but
funny.
100%. That's my message to the world is to go out here and live the best life that you can. Be the best individual that you can be. Be the best husband that you can be. Be the best father that you can be. Be the best son that you can be. Be the best brother that you can be. Be the best employee that you can be. Be the best entrepreneur that you can be. But by God, if you settle for anything less than the best, bro, you're already making excuses for it. So,
right. Hey, Mitch. Yeah, speaking about that was beautiful, bro.
Thank you, man. Sorry, I got a little carried away. I get a little excited, man.
No, this is your podcast. This is your podcast.
You got me hyped up on this Sunday morning, Sid.
This is your podcast, man. Hey, Mitch, do you think? I just want to throw this in there. For me, I'm a strong believer about everything happens for a reason. Do you do you cherish life more now that you've been outside of prison, if that makes sense? Like, or like, how you've been to prison, obviously, and now like you're out. Do you cherish life more than what you did before?
I do. As of right now, 1,000% I do. And I'll tell you a little, I'll give you a little, it's a very deep question you ask. And I know you study criminology and the criminal mind. So I'll give you a detailed answer as far as that, because that runs a little deep. Because the fact of the matter is that when I got out, it was a very hard transition. It was, growing up, I pretty much kind of grew up. I spent all those years that other people would probably be at college or kind of experimenting. I spent those early 20s and no regret. And like I said, I'm not sitting here feeling sorry for myself or anything of that nature. But the fact of the matter was I was kind of raised by the state. I was raised by, the Florida Department of Corrections. And so getting out, I mean, even, it was a very hard transition. Because I was very institutionalized. I knew how to conduct myself in an institution. It's going in at 17. What do you know about yourself, let alone what do you know about this big world? Some people have I applaud these younger generations that are able to identify better opportunities than myself and able to make something of themselves at a young age. Every time I see somebody who's young and killing it, I'm like, bro, look at this motherfucker. I'm like, they just fucking get it, And I love that shit. I thrive off of that shit. And I encourage it. Because that wasn't me. I made a stupid decision and it cost me. But drawing back to the point is that at first it was hard. And I didn't really know a whole lot about, I didn't know a whole lot about relationships. I didn't know a whole lot about getting a job, and getting my footing out here. I didn't really know a whole lot about this world. And it was a difficult transition. And I remember one of my buddies told me, he's like, bro, he's like, Mitch, I'm telling you this as a friend. He's like, wake up. He said, wake up, man. And after that, I did. And, I really just started putting in a lot of the work that I knew it was going to take. After I hit that transition and after everything, I really did gain a greater appreciation for this life out here. Because at the end of the day, you got all this, everything that you want is out here, and it might be disguised in some overalls and it looked like hard work, but it's attainable. Everything that you want out here is attainable. It's going to take the work to go get it. But hey, at the end of the day, what if somebody told you that everything you ever dreamed of is right on the other side of that thing that's called hard work? Would you let that stop you? Would you let that distract you?
I'm working hard.
The fact of the matter is that you got the freedom out here to do everything, man, that you ever dreamed of. There were so many nights that you use this life out here as fuel. It's like, hey, man, when I get out, man, when I get out, man, when I get out, man, when I get out. And it's not, people kind of romanticize the idea of getting out because that's what fuels them to get through the bullshit that they're going through right now. It's like, man, when I get out of here, boy, let me tell you, I am never going back to this shit. I am never dealing with this nonsense ever again, bro. And, obviously at the time you tell yourself that to fuel yourself because that's what you need to hear. That's what you got to tell yourself to pep talk, and it's not as easy. It doesn't come that easy for people when they first get out, but eventually it does come. If you keep going at it, eventually you're going to get where you want to. If you just keep working hard and you get the formula right, if you reevaluate what you're doing and really focus on success and getting there. But 100% it has given me new perspective for life. I would not, I can guarantee you that because of my experiences, it shaped me to be a certain individual that I don't think I could have or would have been had I not gone to prison. And so for that reason, I will confidently sit there and tell you that, because people ask, well, if you could change one thing, would you go through it again, or would you, have changed something? And the fact of the matter is that not at all, because the amount that this has taught me about myself and about life and about so many different aspects of life lessons learned, the amount that I was able to gain was, it was almost infinite intelligence that you were able to grasp. And so 100%, I would sit there and say I would do it all again the exact same way, because you know what, at the end of the day, I've met some great people. I've met countless people that support me along this journey. I wouldn't be having this conversation with you, Sid, if I hadn't done it. So you have to think about a lot of these things, and at the end of the day, that's what it's about, man. Is about being the best. It's going to require some pain, some sacrifice, but sometimes life is just going to be that way in general. And a lot of people don't have that opportunity to reflect on what's going to make them the best. And a lot of people are searching for the way how to do it. A lot of people are just so lost because they're blindly following some sort of social media. And I think a lot of people follow so much of a facade, so much,
Right.
fake following, and people think that it's just going to be like this. It's just going to be easy because I think social media portrays, that image of that. Yeah, it's easy, and we all compare ourselves to, I compare myself. I'm guilty of it. God damn, I wish I was strong and in shape as this guy. When somebody is like, damn, bro, I wish I was as strong as Mitch. So people are looking at it, and so it's all about kind of perspective, and so I think that so many people are lost. And because I was away from that for so long, I'm able to sit there and kind of reel it back in and ground myself in reality. And it's like, that's not how that is. All you got to really do is work hard, and I didn't say it was easy, but I also tell people that if you're not happy right now, that's your fault. You got the ability, I'm not saying it's easy every time, but you have the resources to change anything. If it's a relationship, if it's a job, if it's you have the ability to change and overcome that. You have the freedom to change that, to change your circumstances, to change whatever it's going to take to make you happy, and to live the best life that you possibly can. If you're sitting there and you're unhappy, you need to really reevaluate why that is, and what your daily habits are that are making you that way.
Absolutely, Mitch. Man, big Mitch motivation right there. I love it. Do you think the system fails people that that get released and their transition into society they make? There's like always there's obstacles, like you said about the whole McDonald's deal. You write down, oh yeah, I was or a felon or whatever, then they don't want you, you know what I mean? And then people get setbacks and depression kicks in. There's boundaries to it. Do you think the system kind of fails you in a way? Because in other countries, most prison systems are different from America. Um,
100%.
it's more rehabilitation, life skills, teaching them the correct way, how to do stuff. Rather it be a cook, like teaching them cooking lessons, having a whole kitchen, their living conditions, making them feel a certain way, rather than like the American prisons, how the prison cells, it's terrible, the living conditions, and it
I
makes a
do.
person feel a certain way. Yeah, you did the crime, you should be punished for it, but there should be a different type of punishment, because most of those people, I'd say a majority of those people that are right now in the prison system, um, there's been something that happened like when their youth years, maybe it'd be like trauma or something, or about how they're raised and their environment. But you can't blame them. You got to think about the deeper issue and actually understand that person rather than judge. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
All right. So I'll answer your question like this. I think that in many ways the system doesn't always work. I believe there are instances, and there are times, and there are places, and there are people um, that will help and alongside this journey. And a lot of times it is set up. I'll give you a brief story. I was at a place called Sago Palms, and it was the whole idea behind this place was that so you had to have, I'll give you a little background on it. You had to have 3 years or left remaining on your sentence in order to get to this place. And it was supposedly all about rehabilitation, helping you transition back into society, et cetera, et cetera. The reality was something different when you got there. It was one of the hardest places to do time because of how everything was set up, because they made everything so difficult.
mm,
Additionally, from what I understand, is that they were donated a certain amount of money to start. I think it was a solar panel program where you start learning about solar and then things of that nature. And so there was like an amount of money that was donated specifically for this program. And I mean, as far as I had saw within the course of probably, almost 2 years, I never saw a solar panel class. So somebody, I'm sure, may have pocketed that money at some point somewhere. I don't know. I won't get too far. I won't delve too far into the politics behind that, but I do believe that the system does fail on a large scale. And I think that was why I think that a lot of times it's going to be difficult, but you need to look within yourself for the answers. You need to. It was something that Uncle Phil said, and I was watching the highlights from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and something that that was a message that kind of hit me. It was like, it's not, people have opened doors for me, and I work hard to open doors for other people. It doesn't make you any less of a man to go through them, to walk through those doors. And that was a message that I relate to because of the fact that when I got out and I was going through all these issues, finding a job, filling out, hundreds of applications, applying, filling out these assessment tests, going, assessment questions that are so stupid. Like you want to pay me $8.50 an hour, but you want to ask me if I see my coworker stealing, what do I do? A, B, or C, or D? And explain why. And it's like, what are you talking about? And I think that in many ways the system does fail in fully preparing you for what's to come. Because the fact of the matter was I didn't have the skill. I didn't know what it took. I didn't have that formula for success like I do now. So I asked for help. I told that there was a lady at the trade school that I went to that her job was finding you employment once you had graduated the trade school. And so I was like, listen, I said, I'm going to be upfront with you as possible. I need a job right now to survive because I'm out here free. And it's like, oh yeah, you can go do whatever you want now. And it's like, well, thing is to do whatever I want requires money, which requires a way of securing money, preferably legal way of securing money. So I kind of need a job to make that happen. And so I reached out and I wasn't scared to ask for help after getting, my head bashed in from all these applications and rejections. And I've been on interviews to where I absolutely killed it. And everybody's like, man, you can start Monday as soon as this background check comes back. And I'm like, oh, why did you say those words? I'm like, oh, why did you have to say those words? And like, yeah, we can't wait. And another fun fact is the fact that, because of the charge that I have, because it has murder within the charge, I've been, on a deeper level of kind of rejection because a lot of people say, oh, well, yeah, well, I kind of have a background, I made some mistakes, when I was younger. It's like, oh, well, you didn't rape or kill anybody, right? And I was like, well, by technically, I didn't rape anybody, so it's like, okay. And technically I didn't kill anybody either, but nevertheless, it comes down to an explanation, and the conversation kind of becomes awkward because people aren't really comfortable with discussing things like that. And you can see, you can cut the tension with a butter knife, when it comes to that conversation. But I did find the formula that worked, but I had to find it out for myself, and I had to dig really deep in order to ask for help and read up on what it was going to take and what others did. In some ways, I would say in a greater percentage, it does fail in that aspect. And it failed me. I'll give you another example. This is a personal example. So in Florida, what we have something that's called work release. And you're eligible when you're 19 months away from going home. So at the last 19 months of your sentence, you're eligible to go. Provided, obviously, that you don't have a case that's, too high, and so long as you've been kind of behaving without any sort of write-ups in prison, for X amount of time, you didn't have any disciplinary reports or any form of negative, on your for a certain amount of time, that would, you would ultimately meet those requirements. I was supposed I was supposed to meet those requirements by the time that I had gotten down to 19 months. And something happened to where at a work release facility, somebody with a murder charge went out and I think committed some form of crime again. I don't know what it was. People will tell me that, oh, he committed another murder. I don't know that that's the case, but I know that somebody with murder related in their charge went to work release, committed a crime, and they said, okay, well, from here on out, because shit rolls downhill, anybody with anything anything related to murder can no longer go to work release. And work release was a program where you go out, find employment, and you basically kind of live in somewhat of a halfway house at the time to kind of help you transition. You get furloughs on weekends. You get like a 12-hour furlough on weekends. So basically you get to go home. You're technically still in prison, but you're living at a halfway house. You're wearing regular clothes. You're working a regular job. You have a curfew, and you get to go home on weekends for 12 hours. And it's like, for me, being 17 and going through everything that I went through for such a long time, I was looking forward to that. I'm like, hell yeah, I can't wait. And then as soon, like, I was probably 2 years exactly away from going home, and then they put that mandate out, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding. I was like, they took this from me. I was like, the one thing that somebody who really needed a program like that to help transition out, because I don't know anything about finding a job, I don't know anything. I was like, to give me that leg up would have meant everything to me. And I was like, they took that from me, and I was like, oh my goodness gracious. I was like, so they did it again. So in many ways, I would say, to answer your question, sorry, I went on a long tangent after that.
No, you're good.
But to get the full experience, I want to tell you that in many ways it does fail. But I think then that's why my message is so deeply related to searching within yourself to find the strength that it needs to combat some of the rejection and some of the things that you're going to go through here. And obviously my line is always open to individuals who are struggling for that. Anybody can send me a message on the fact that they're just having a hard time of it, and I always try and try and give them, I'm like, hey, well, have you tried this? Have you tried this? Have you tried the other? And so I'm more than happy to share how I was met with some level of success to other people, because I know that struggle, and I know it well, and I know how it feels. And I don't want anybody else to feel or have to go through the things that I went through. So in many aspects, I do believe it can be better. But on the other side of that, I will say that sometimes there is help to be found. There are people that are willing to help. There is that work release program. I got kind of the butt end of it. And so, like I said, to a greater percentage, I think that the system does fail, but on a small level, it does succeed. And I will give credit where it's due. It's not 100% a failure, and it does need work. There does need to be a change in things. But I think to some small degree, it does help you succeed. I won't condemn the entirety of it, but so like I said, it's to some degree, I think that it's give and take. But nevertheless, I think that something needs to be done for kind of individuals that went through an experience like my own. But there is success there, and there is success within yourself. If you know how to, I tell people, I ask people, like, well, I want to learn how to do this. I'm like, well, do you know how to read? And they're like, yeah, of course I know how to read. And I'm like, well, read a book on it, read an article about it, look up something, hell, look up a YouTube video on how to do it, whatever. But find out, you have more access to information than a president did, X amount of years ago, so many years ago. You can sit there and everything's right on your phone, where we can easily access somebody's Instagram profile or TikTok or, anything like that once you look up something that's beneficial to you, So a lot of the times those resources are available. You just have to know how to find them. You have to really know, you have to learn. And so there's a process in that. But like I said, for a small percentage, it does succeed, and there are places where you're put into a position of kind of breaking that old you down, and building the new you up.
Absolutely. Hey, Mitch, for you, real quick, for you, because I want to get into something else also. Being 17 years old, I don't know if you're a double amputee at that time.
Yes.
How was that for you, like trying to, adapt into a whole different world?
It was very unique. So I'll tell you why. Again, I kind of got lucky was that the media kind of portrayed me. They thought I was the hitman, put it like that, because the town that I got arrested in is in Orlando, which is about 3.5 hours from where I live. So I'm nowhere near really home. So I go to Orlando. I get charged in Orlando, 3.5 hours away from home, and they're looking at my charges, and then the media is running like a news story on, and they beef the hell out of it up. They truly exaggerated a lot. I'm like, wow. And so they portrayed me to be the hitman that was supposed to take out all the witnesses. And so I was in shape at the time. So everybody, the guards are looking at me and they're like, I'm in the juvenile detention center at the time. And this was my first story that blew up on TikTok as I'm telling the story. And everybody's telling me like, oh, you're full of it, bro. You're capping, bro. That didn't really happen. I'm like, yeah, tell me a little bit more about my life and how it didn't happen. Please. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anyway. But the media had just portrayed this image. And so the officers at the juvenile detention center are looking at me like, nobody knows this guy because he's from out of town. This guy's supposedly a hitman taken out. He's in shape. I'm like, this guy's got to be like some kind of trained killer or operative or something like that. So they put me in solitary confinement because they thought that I was too much of a danger to anybody else. So in a way, it kind of helped me because everybody, once they cleared me to go out in the general population, everybody's like, damn, bro, they call you the hitman and all this other stuff. And I'm like, oh man, you got to be kidding me. So in my head, I'm like, oh my God, that's the last thing I need. But in a weird way, it kind of helped because everybody was like, oh shit, that guy's that guy's dangerous, So not everybody is like that, obviously, some people, but I'm easy enough to get along with. So at first that kind of helped me. And then as I kind of made the transition into what we call in Florida, we call them JIT camps. And JIT camps are at the time that I was in, was for anybody. It's a prison that's designated for anybody 24 and under at the time. I think it's less now. I think it's probably 22 and under now, or you have to be sentenced under the guidelines or something of that nature. But at the time that I was in, it was 24 and under. So, man, let me tell you. It gets a little rough. It gets a little rough around the edges. It gets rough because you got a bunch of kids just running around, just absolutely insane. And you see some bad stuff going in there. And so, you put it out there that you're not going to be the one that's going to be disrespected at this point in time. You put it out there, and what ended up happening with me, this was another story I shared, was that me and one of the guards kind of got into it because he was as soon as I got off the bus, they were on me like wet on rice. They were already making fun. They were calling me Lieutenant Dan. They were calling me Hop Along. They were calling me this, that, and the other. And so it was already a long ass day. Whenever you transfer in prison, it is a long day. It is the longest day of your life. It starts at 2 a.m. They wake you up to get everything ready because they got thousands of people that they need to get shipped off to where they need to go. And so the process begins early in the morning and it ends in the late evening. So it is the longest day ever. And so we're standing outside in the hot ass sun. These guys just keep digging at me. And finally I just kind of I'm like, hey, I mean, obviously I am the way I am, but it only takes one accident. You never know. It could be you, your wife, your kids, and then they're in a situation like me. And he did not like that whatsoever. And these guards this is in the middle of nowhere. Lancaster has the nickname that it goes by, and they call it Clancaster because so many of the guards there and COs were notoriously a part of the KKK. Wow. And so they call it Clan. They nickname it Clancaster for that reason. And let me tell you, these guys are, I don't know where they find these guys. I'm a pretty strong dude, as we mentioned. I'm a pretty strong guy. Man, these guys sit there and outclass me. I mean, just full out on outclass me. A different kind of country cornbread strong. I don't know. These guys are humongous. And I'm just so I tell this guy this guy hits me harder than I've ever been hit in my life, bro. I've been hit by an SUV by my friend accidentally. And let me tell you, this SUV had nothing on this guy. This SUV had nothing on this guy. I'm like, yo, and I probably flew about a good 5 feet. I'm like, God damn. And so the thing was that, moral of the story was that kind of bred, again, it was a blessing and a curse at the same time, because it bred some empathy, because everybody, all the inmates, they were like, yo, that's fucked up. You guys are insulting the man, and then you expect him to just sit there and take it, and then you guys fucking, you guys jump on him for him defending himself, kind of thing. So a lot of, that helped my initial transition, because initially, when you're going to have the most issues is when people want to feel out who you are. A lot of the predators are looking for new prey, and that's just how it is. That's just survival, and at that point in time. So if you show any kind of weakness, then they're going to exploit that weakness, and they're just going to keep coming back. So a lot of times, if you won't fight for yourself, if they know that, they're going to come at you every single time, and they're going to make you sit there and do things like pay rent, or you're going to get extorted, or you're going to go through this experience. And it gets hard on a lot of people. I had set that example from the get-go, because not a lot of people are stupid enough to sit there and talk back to the officers. And a lot of people, they'll comment to themselves, or like, oh, no, he wouldn't do that to me, like, yeah, okay, motherfucker, I've seen it happen to people like you. But I think the fact of the matter was that I already put it out there with that statement, that I wasn't afraid to get stupid. When it came down to, I'm challenging like the biggest and baddest guards. So
Right.
What is it that you think that you're going to be able to intimidate me with? So I think I had set that message off rip, and for that reason, obviously you got people that are still going to try, and I dealt with that accordingly. I just made it a known point. I didn't walk out with my chest, my chest out or anything like that. I didn't walk around too cocky, because there's always somebody that's got your number. There were several people that had my number. I'm not gonna, I'm not ashamed to admit it. Somebody on TikTok said one time, they're like, you're the only story that I've come across in all these prison TikToks where you actually didn't win this fight. And I was like, I appreciate your honesty on that. I'm like, I'm not trying to sit here and tell you all these glamour stories about it. I'm telling you just like it was. I'm not sitting here capping. I'm telling you exactly how it was, so that you learn, fucking stay your ass the fuck out of there. So to be honest with you, like I said, I went through my blessings and cursings, but at the end of the day, I did get lucky in a couple of those situations, because I actually knew a guy. We called him Lefty because he was missing his right arm. Mm-hmm. And man, he had a bad experience first coming in. But like I said, he didn't portray, he portrayed a little bit of weakness, and he was a little bit off. And so, and it is what it is. But that energy you put out, it's still survival at that point. And terrible to say, but that's what it comes down to, is you got to survive still. Right. And you can't just be taken advantage of. You can't be that guy that that's viewed as weak, because even then people don't really want to associate with you if you're weak. I even used to tell people that I associated with, like, listen, bro, like, because they come to me and like, Mitch, like this guy's giving me an issue, and I'm like, bro, you got to handle that. I'm not encouraging like violence or anything like that nature. I mean, right. I did then, because I'm like, listen, bro, let me tell you something. If you won't fight for yourself, I can't fight for you. That's just not how this works. So you need to be able to, and it's going to build the character within you. You might have to fight one time, but by God, they're going to know that, okay, I can't go to this guy because he's going to fight. At least he'll fight for his stuff. If I'm going to pick somebody, I'm going to pick somebody where it's just going to be easy. I can just go take their stuff, and they're not going to do anything about it. So I know that. So every time I'm going to go out, I'm going to do that every single time. If you're at least willing to stand up for yourself, build the character to epitomize some strength, and then that's, some people just weren't fighters, and that's just, it is what it is. And like I said, it comes down to survival. I did the best that I could, because a lot of people respected me, because a lot of the heads, what we called kind of crown holders, within certain institutions, a lot of them are kind of in a leadership position. And, a lot of these people, I worked out with, because you could always catch me on the yard. I was always working out. Eventually, one of my nicknames became Iron Man, because they always catch me on the iron out in the yard, and I was always working out. Obviously I got 2 titanium legs, so they're like, yeah, the Iron Man, it just sticks. And I was like, Iron Man. Somebody told me that one day. They're like, they call you Iron Man on the compound. I'm like, what? I'm like, I never heard that, but this is my first time hearing that. I just started laughing. But a lot of these guys sort of in leadership positions, they all worked out with me. Why? Because I studied, I knew exactly what I was doing. So a lot of my workouts were pretty intense. And so a lot of these guys worked out with me. So a lot of times if I just, if I kind of felt bad for somebody, I was like, listen, bro, just let me handle this, bro. Because, at the end of the day, so I'd go out on a limb and talk for some people, but I'm like, listen, bro, this is survival, bro. You got to do what you got to do. And eventually I'd get a lot of these guys working out with me. A lot of guys that were, kind of fall into that genre of, they hadn't really, I'll just say they hadn't really reached their full potential yet. From that point on, I started lifting people up, and I'm like, bro, come and work out with me, bro. Like, you're gonna come work out with me on the yard, and that's exactly what's gonna happen. You're gonna, worst case scenario, you're gonna get big as hell, bro. You're gonna get stronger. You're gonna realize what you're physically capable of. And I said, they see you with me, and so nobody's gonna sit there and mess with you at the end of the day. Plus, another factor I kind of forgot to add in was these legs are like pure metal too, so like titanium. So, and I can throw a head kick really well. So I had legitimate legal weapons within my whole stay in prison. So you kind of backed up for a second if you thought that maybe a head kick was coming your way and I was about to rock your whole thing to where you need reconstructive surgery. So a lot of people don't want that. So a lot of people are like, all right, I'm not going to mess with this guy. He's big. He works out. He knows how to fight. And if this guy kicks me, then I might be in the hospital for an extended stay. So not to say, like I said, I didn't walk around like that. Most of the time, I'm cool with people. So, but nevertheless, that was sort of a life lesson as how it was for me and what I tried to explain to other people kind of coming in.
Right. So that's even how that's how you dealt with all your like if you're mad about something, angry about something, that's how you released your
take
anger.
It out on that iron. Take it out on and it was worse because they took out weights in about 2007.
I was about to ask you that too. Yeah.
They took out weights, so I made these routines that were insanely based on just calisthenics at the time. And so it's funny because when I got to a different part of Florida, because you got parts of Florida that are very much like the Confederate South, let's just say, and they're very remote, like when I first started. And then you got other parts of Florida that are like down south, like Miami. You're talking Palm Beach, Miami, things of that nature, where you're kind of in a little more, you're in a little more of an area where things are a little more open. So, at one point in time, this one place I was at, man, they had contraband. I'm talking about, they would go through the dorm. I remember going through. They shook down one dorm and found like 20 cell phones just in this dorm. And these are just the ones that they found.
Dang.
So I'm like, golly, man. And so at this point in time, everybody's like worried about getting contraband in. I was just worried about getting I was like, hey, bro, you think you can get me like some like protein and creatine and stuff like that? And meanwhile, I'm like smuggling in bags of pillowcases full of sand in the dorm so that I can do I can do curls and weighted stuff with like sandbags and stuff like that. We're sitting there where we put our lockers underneath the bunks and like had a few people sit on it, and we would like do a makeshift bench press with the bunks, and this is my way of it. This is my illegal activity at that point in time was, we're watching out for the COs coming in because we got a whole bunk and we got a bag of sand there that we're sitting there curling with a broomstick or a cane or somebody's cane, and so it was just the funniest thing to me. But that was definitely how I dealt with it. And eventually it got to the point where my workouts were just like insane. So everybody's like, damn, bro, like fucking you're getting big, bro. Mitch, you're getting big. Like, what the hell are you doing out there? And I'm like, come work out with me and I'll show you. And so
hey, Mitch, did they take out the weights because the inmates started to get bigger than the seat, like absolutely jacked, and the COs were getting afraid of all that? Is that why they took them out?
I think there's twofold reason for that, because you could sit there and say that obviously, I mean, I could go and wait while you're on a bench press or something on some machine, and I could whack you with a 45-pound plate. You would be you would be out of there. But the thing is that you couldn't touch a weight unless you were like 6 months clean of any write-ups or things like that. So if it hadn't been 6 months, you couldn't go in the weight cage. So So you could say as far as weights were a weapon, but I think it's exactly kind of what you touched on, is that a lot of the officers kind of became out of shape. Aside from some of the places where like I was at first, where these guys were just humongous. So I think it did become about control, because okay, you got 2,000 inmates on the compound, you got 1,000 of them that can bench over 400 pounds. Like, what are you really going to do if it pops off in here? You better call in the National Guard. Like
Right.
this is going to be a bad situation. So I think, to be honest, you can say the two reasons as far as weights being a weapon, but you're never really going to put a stop to weapons in prison, because everybody will find one. Anything could be a weapon. Your toothbrush is a weapon. A lot of people sharpen a toothbrush, and that's a shank, and that's just how it is. So anything can be a weapon. I've seen people take an entire locker and they'll drop it off of the top tier, off of the second floor, onto somebody, like a whole metal foot locker onto somebody. So don't sit there and tell me that the weights were a problem,
Right.
So I think it became more about control, about the fact that, God, these guys are getting massive, and these guys can outlift pretty much everybody. How is it that we're gonna, at most, let's say we have 50 correctional officers, but you got 1,000 people on the yard that are just in the best shape of their life and bench pressing over 400 pounds. What are you really going to do? What
Right.
kind of control are you going to have? So, to be honest with you, I think that was a move as far as control was concerned, as far as being controlling was concerned.
Absolutely. Hey, Mitch, I don't want to take up too much of your time, man. I know,
You're good, brother. You're
man,
good, brother.
I'm learning
We're
a
here
lot
now.
here.
We're here now, bro. We're here now. God knows, when the next, time our schedule will line up like this. So either way, take advantage,
Right.
bro.
I wanted to touch up on one thing real quick. I'm not sure how this works. I don't know if anyone's ever asked you this, but how does the special needs, like if someone is special needs and like mentally not there, like for the slower people, however you want to say it, are they in general population, or do they get any type of special treatment?
Okay, so I'm going to be honest with you. Probably at least for the Florida Department of Corrections, is probably one of the largest mental health facilities in general. Prisons in general are a large mental health sort of institution, I guess. As far as being, I have seen a lot of times they do get fit and cleared to go into general population, and it does happen. I mean, I've seen, there's a place called Lake Butler. It's called Reception and Medical Center in Lake Butler. Everybody calls it, So, and that is specifically tailored to a lot of people with some sort of ailment, injury. I used to go there. I wasn't permanently there, but when they were working on my legs, I would go to that institution because that was the designated medical facility. So you see the entire spectrum as far as medical conditions are concerned. You see the entirety of it, because from my understanding, and I've only ever seen this happen one time, if they cannot afford you the type of medical treatment equivalent to that which you would receive if you were free, then technically they have to let you out in order to receive that sort of care, because they can no longer take care of you. I've only seen that done once, and that was a guy with a brain tumor who was terminal, and I don't even think he had that much longer on his sentence, and I think that he was diagnosed to be terminal, and so that was the only case I've ever seen of that happening. But literally, you see, and Lake Butler is pretty notorious for that, because it's another place that nobody just gives a damn, especially the COs. They just don't give a shit, because everybody's kind of going left and right there. There were times I'd come back from lunch, I'd come back from chow, and they're rolling somebody's mattress up and they're taking all their property out. Now, that usually means one of two things. They're transferring somewhere, out of the blue. They're going to confinement, or they just passed away. And so a lot of times you would see, sometimes it became the normal that you'd come back from lunch and you see they're rolling somebody's stuff up, and, hate to say it, and you get a little desensitized to it, but that they had passed away from something. I mean, you see people on dialysis, you see cancer patients, you see brain tumors, you see all kind. I mean, people come in and were rehabilitative in surgery, broken bones, limbs, etc. Torn, you see it all. You see amputees there. I've met so many amputees in prison. It's amazing. I'm like, I didn't know this many amputees existed. I don't know why the hell we all committed crimes, but Jesus. So I'm like, golly, man. So, but you see the entire spectrum. There is no way to sit there, and there is no way to go about it. But a lot of times they are, unfortunately, um, they are in general population as well. I've seen many, yes, unfortunately.
Now, Mitch, I loved how you use your fitness to for your everyday life, usually your routine in prison. Was it mandatory for you to do that, or was it just on your own, or?
In some places they make you go out to the yard, and I know that the politics, you're in California, right?
Right. Oh, it's heavy.
Okay.
It's heavy in California.
Yeah. Now the politics in California, from what I understand, are entirely different, and from what I understand, it's completely like segregated, and a lot of the guys that I've ever talked to or listened to out of Cali have a much different experience. So, I'll just speak for some of the guys that I know, as far as you being, like I said, I'm not speaking like I have any authority over that, but from what I understand, a lot of them will, at least as far as Cali, will sit there and hold you, and you don't really have a choice. You're going to go out there and you're going to work out. I know a lot of the guys sit there and make you do that. Not so much, but a lot of times a lot of times yard is mandatory for you to go to. So it's not like you just sit around and sleep in the dorm all day. You actually have, you're not just sitting in a cell all day. That's more like a county jail kind of thing. But when you actually get to prison, they actually have work assignments for you to do. Whether you're working in the kitchen, making these meals, you're cleaning up the dormitories, you're a painter, you're mowing the lawns on the grounds or anything like that. You have a work assignment typically within Florida prisons. And if you don't happen to be working at that time, you're not staying in the dormitory during the daytime. You got first and second yard. First being between breakfast and lunch, and second yard being between lunch and dinner. And that's just how it goes. So in a lot of places, yard is mandatory. So you're going to go out there anyway. So why the hell not? What are you going to do? You're going to sit around and bullshit. I mean, you can go around and sit and bullshit. You can go, have a damn picnic if you want to. You can go to canteen. You can go. But a lot of times you're going on that yard, so might as well make the best of it. If I'm already out here, what else am I going to do? So, but I had always been into working out even before, so this was something that was already part of who I was. So I loved, I loved to work out. That was what got me motivated. That was what got me excited. That was what helped me get through another day. It was, you know what? I got this workout to look forward to. I said, and that's exactly, I'll take it from there, but one day at a time, one workout at a time. I said, and we'll go from there. That was my therapy. That was what kept me grounded. That was what kept me out of trouble. I was like, man, I'm not trying to do all that. No, I don't want to do no drugs, because I got to go work out. My only drug was coffee. I used to drink intolerable amounts of coffee. I used to drink something like 13 cups a day at one point, Like, Mitch, there's something wrong with you. Like, you drink a lot of coffee. So, that was my drug of choice, because that was how it was. But either way, the best thing to fall into, God forbid you land yourself in a situation like that, is routine. If you got your routine and things that you can focus on, a lot of people, surprisingly, a lot of guys do like to work in prison, because it gives them a routine. It gives them something to do. It gives them, it's something that's productive. And so a lot of guys, I didn't understand it at first. I was like, why the hell would you want to work in for? Why would you want to go sit there and do that? But it gives them some semblance of normalcy and a routine to kind of get through that day, and get through their time like that. Mine, it was funny because I specifically requested a job as a painter, because I had learned that the painters hadn't painted shit in like 3 years at the time. So I was like, oh, so basically we never work. So I get to go to the yard and just work out all day. So I was like, oh, perfect. So I signed up to be a painter because of the fact that, I gave him a whole rundown of everything. Like, oh yeah, I used to paint outside, and professionally, and, I mean, I was full of shit, but I just wanted to be on the paint squad so I could go out and work out all day and so have a free schedule. So at the end of the day, it wasn't something that was mandatory at all. But it was something that, you know what, I enjoyed doing. It was a positive thing. And you know what? Hey, why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Mitch. Yeah. Now, talking about the working out in prison now, how does that transition to your life now? Like, do you have any plans that you want to do with that? Do you want to be a fitness coach for those?
To a large degree, I am. I'm training I'm actually training one person that actually wants to be on the police force. Funny enough, so they want to pass the physical assessment test. I don't have anything against cops. I mean, I understand that that they have a job to do as well, and it's all give and take. You're going to have people that are good. You're going to have people that are bad.
Right.
Do I think a large degree of change may need to happen? And maybe certainly there's always room for change. There's always room for improvement. I'm always critical of myself on even getting 1% better. So, of course, I'm always going to say that there's room for improvement, even on myself. Even if you showed me perfection, I still probably wouldn't be happy. I was like, you know what, we can strive for more. So, but physical fitness is always something that, yes, I definitely want to transition into more of. When COVID came around, I was training quite a few individuals before COVID kind of came around, shut the gyms down, and then kind of things kind of went a little haywire, and we all kind of hit that speed bump. So definitely slowed me down on that, but things are kind of picking up a little bit over here, at least Florida is concerned. Florida's kind of always been that way, though, for whatever reason. We're a special breed down here. I tell people, I'm like, yeah, we're a special. We're definitely a very special breed down here. Here in Florida, we just sometimes we just don't.
Wild.
Sometimes we just don't give a shit. You can go on social media right now and look up, Florida, Miami spring break, and then look at the videos of what's going on here, and then that'll give you an idea as to what goes on down here. And a lot of it is foreigners coming in just on vacation, but everybody's so oppressed and everybody's so tired of staying in. It's like, yo, let me out, and so, and that's just how it is. But nevertheless, Florida is definitely, we definitely breed a very unique. I tell a lot of people. If you ever get the chance, you probably saw this one, but go to Google and type in Florida man and then your birthday, not the year, but just your birthday, and you'll find like a hilarious headline, guaranteed. On any day, you will find like a hilarious headline about a Florida man. I promise you.
Is it like those weird, like those memes type deal where they're like just doing these? I don't know. There's people that have been that got arrested for like weird crimes, like
yes, that's exactly what it is. It's not even. It's factual. You can look this up. I promise. Look up your birthday, maybe not the year, but look up your birthday and type in Florida man and your birthday, and you will find a hilarious headline somewhere. It's try it out, and that'll give you an idea. What Florida prisons are like, because a lot of these guys got arrested, and just this is the type of people that you deal with in Florida. So,
hey Mitch, I'm gonna and I'll let you know after this interview.
Yeah,
what do you define yourself as, and what are some goals that you have that you want to accomplish in the next couple of years, maybe 5 or even 10 years down the road?
So, what do I define myself as? I'm many different titles. I'm a son to my parents. I'm a husband to be to my fiance. I want to one day be a father to children. I want to be a great father. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a coach. I'm a lot of different things. I fall under a lot of different categories because I don't think that the true definition of a man is implied by anything else. I mean, you could say, maybe a man in that aspect, because I used to tell a lot of people, I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm a man before I'm anything. And it's not any one particular title. As a man, you're gonna feel a range of emotions. You're gonna feel, a lot of people get desensitized, and a lot of people aren't keen on showing weakness as a man. But at the end of the day, a man is I can sit there and be. I can be romantic with my wife, or I can be tough in the gym. I can be a hell of a fighter when I'm sitting there sparring against this next guy over here. So a man is multidimensional, and a man has many different titles. And so I take on the role of many, but I suppose at the end of the day, I classify them all as a man. And also it separates the men from the boys, I believe,
right.
Because you got the boys, but then you got the men. And I feel like men fall under this title, and I feel like a lot of people, especially nowadays, got away from the title of a man and what that really implies, you know, and how many different aspects that really covers of you just being a man. So I guess that's probably the best answer that I could give you, because it's so multidimensional, and at least as far as the standards that I hold, you know, because like I said, there's so many different aspects to it.
Right. Absolutely. Big Mitch, baby. Big Mitch.
100%. There you go, Big Mitch. That's just who I am. But and as far as, you know, where I want to be 5-10 years, I probably want to be fully into, you know, I want to be fully kind of committed to this lifestyle of helping people out. It was always a dream of mine, because for whatever reason, and I posted a picture not too long ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, of I was coming back from South Carolina, because a buddy of mine I was coaching in the corner man for my buddy who was fighting in South Carolina at the time. And I was coming back from South Carolina, and this Army Ranger comes up to me, and he's like, "Hey man," he's like, "You mind if I talk to you for a second?" I'm like, "Yeah, sit down, bro." And he comes up to me, and he's kind of got a brace on his leg, and I'm wearing shorts at the time, so I'm like, you know, full on, you know, amputee, you can see. And he's like, "Listen," he's like, how long did it take you to kind of learn how to walk?" And this was something I was born with. You know, I apologize that we only got to this now, but so I've been an amputee for a long time. So he's like, "Hey man, you know, how did you adjust?" He's like, you know, he's like, honestly, he's like, "What I'm using right now is just cadaver parts that they put on me." So I'm like, "Oh shit!" So they Frankenstein you. I'm joking around with him. You know, so oh, they made Frankenstein out of you, because cadaver parts are, you know, the parts from, you know, deceased bodies that, you know, are still good, but they're using them just as a means to an end. And so he's like, "But honestly, I'm experiencing a lot of complications." And he's like, "Honestly," he's like, "I think it's just gonna come down to being, you know, amputated." And he's like, "I just wanted to get some insight from you." And a lot of people come up to me. A lot of vets come up to me. My dad was a vet, so it hits home a little harder too. And a lot of vets come up to me and they ask me. I remember I had the privilege of talking to one guy. His name's Derek Carver, and he was the world's strongest man. The disabled one, because he had come back from war, and he had one of his legs amputated because of an explosion that he had went over. So, and I remember he was competing at an event here in Florida, and he comes up to me and he's like, "Hey," he's like, "Come here for a second." And I'm like, "What's up?" He's like, "Hey, I'm Derek Carver." I'm like, "Yeah, I know who you are, bro." So I was like, "I know who you are."
You don't tell me.
Yeah, and so he's like, "Bro," he's like, "How the hell are you walking on the sand so easily?" And so I just laughed. But a lot of these guys come up to me like as though I have something, and maybe I do. You know, maybe I don't see it. But a lot of these guys come up to me, a lot of vets especially, come up to me and they're like, "Oh, bro," and they ask me for advice. And what I was looking forward to to doing and transitioning to was working with a lot of the Wounded Warriors Project. And that's what I wanted to do before COVID. I want to get into motivational speaking. I'm not much of a speaker. I stumble a little bit now, so I want to get better, you know, and that was another reason to start using a platform on social media, another reason to get into some of these interviews and start sharing my story so that I'm a little better, so that I can refine it and get that 1% better that I'm talking about here. Because I want to get into that. I want to get into motivational speaking. I want to get into inspiring people, because people come up to me already as it is. So I want to, and I love doing this. So kind of taking advantage and practicing what I preach as far as getting better, living the best life that I can. I want to open up, you know, a business doing that, helping people transition from felons, you know, overall coaching in general, just kind of challenging you to be the best individual that you can be, whether that comes down to personal training, whether that comes down to you letting go of some of the bad decisions and some of the bad habits that you have in your life. You know, this is something that I'm passionate about. That's something that I want to do and something that I would like to transition to and do that full time, because if I can do that full time, then I would be enjoying myself and I would be living my best life, helping others to live theirs.
Hell yeah. Wow. Yeah, Mitch, that'd be really cool, man. I can picture you on a big platform, you know, talking to millions.
I wish.
One day. No,
we're gonna make it happen, though. That's the thing. So we're gonna make it happen. You know, anything else, I'm not gonna sit there and negate it, because you know what? At the end of the day, if I negate it, I'm leaving a door open for room and I'm leaving room for regret and doubt and negative. So you know what? Absolutely, 100%. So.
Right, and that's why I say everything kind of happens for a reason. Like you're born with your, you know, the amputee, and you went to prison when you were 17, so you can relate, and you have a lot to that you can share to others that may be struggling or may have had the same stories you kind of you know what I mean.
Exactly.
And you can relate, and that's why a lot of people come up to you, and that's huge. That's a great feeling. I someone wanting advice, you know what I mean, from you. So that's really cool, and I support everything you do, and yeah, man, you're a cool ass dude. One more thing before we go.
Go for it.
Do you have any advice for those at home that may be a double amputee or somewhat amputee, and they don't know how to carry themselves? Uh, they're kind of depressed, because what happened and stuff. And for those that are at home that may be having family issues or in and out of jail at a young age, stuff like that. Got any advice for them?
100%. Do it all for you. Keep going. Keep fighting. Do it for all the right reasons. Don't worry about anybody else. Sometimes it's okay to be a little bit selfish in some of these aspects, but make the right decisions, but make them for you. Make them for not because you want to impress upon anybody else, and not because anything other than the fact that you have it within yourself to accomplish everything that you set out to do. Everything that you want to do is achievable. It's within you. You already have the power within you. You just got to unlock it, and that's the truth of the matter. And like I said, when you get going, do it. Make sure that you're doing things just for you and not for anybody else. Not because you want the acceptance of anybody else. Not because somebody else was doing it. No. At the end of the day, know who you are, what your purpose is, what it is that you love doing, why you love doing it. And at the end of the day, I encourage it. If you know who you are at the end of the day, once you figure it out, keep going, keep fighting.
You don't understand, Mitch, how powerful that is, bro. Like,
and I appreciate that, Sid. I appreciate it.
Man, I enjoyed sitting back. I take notes for every one of my guests. I take notes, and I remember everything. I try to remember everything my guests, have said, like, during their interview, because I relate it to other. I'll for sure mention you and with my other guests. Hey, Mitch, so and so this, so and so that. You know what I mean?
100%.
It's I don't know. I just like to do it, and this is something that I'm very passionate about. So,
of course,
I appreciate you for coming on, man, and I'm
appreciate you having me, man. It was a long time coming, but you know what? It ended up being great because you know what? Although we had kind of been going back and forth as calendars, man, it happened just like it was supposed to, man. We were able to get this great conversation going, man, between you and I. And like I said, I respect the hell out of what you're doing, man. And I'm looking forward to your story. Now, Sid, I'm gonna keep nagging you about it, bro. Like, I'm keep nagging you about it. At some point in time, you got to remember who's going to interview the interviewer. So understand something. So don't be too selfish. Now, there's people that need to hear that story. So don't hold that shit in, Sid. That's just selfish. That's just selfish.
Right. No, you're right, man. I'm gonna get it out there. What do you have planned for the day? Are you at work today or no?
I don't work. I work typically Monday through Saturday. So now I'm just going to go hang out with the family. We're just going to eat some good food. Like I said, I love to eat. So that's going to be my thing. A little bit of R&R, maybe some projects around the house. But you know what? Other than that, that's going to be it, man. We're just going to hang it up for the rest of the day. And just whatever happens, we'll just go with it on Sundays, man. I already trained somebody early this morning. So we're good to go now. Got this interview. I definitely wanted to get that in with you, man.
Yeah, man.
Definitely looking forward to corresponding. Looking forward to your numbers going up, man. And
appreciate it.
From there, I know I'm going to share it on a few different platforms there, and we're going to go, brother.
I appreciate that. Hey, and Mitch, actually, let's do your thumbnail for this one. You want to do that thumbnail?
Yeah, I can go ahead and I can make it. And then, like I said, if you want to keep going with this, I mean, we can definitely keep doing that. I'll go ahead and send it to you. You know how to put it up, upload it, and everything. So I'll go ahead, and if not, I'll put something together, and we'll go from there, brother.
I'd want a picture. Me, it's you. So the light is all on you. So I'd want like a picture of you or something like that, and then we could work our way around it.
Well, the thing is, all right. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of advice here, though, too, man. Obviously, yes, this is a little bit of my story of what I'm doing, but YouTube is just that, bro. It's you, Sid, bringing. This is your channel too. Don't forget that. Don't forget this platform that you're building, and this is what you're selling here on YouTube, bro. Not literally selling, but what you're putting out there is just you. So understand. I'll put something together where it's a correlation, bro, or something. Where we can sit there, and you can even use this template almost to put other guests in it. So it'll be you, like kind of a sit down, and then it'll have your other guest on there or something. I'll put together a template for you, brother. I got you, man.
Cool. Appreciate you, Big Mitch. Hey, we're gonna stay in contact. We pretty much stay in contact at least.
Anyways, yeah, exactly.
So I appreciate you, brother, for coming on here. Enjoy the rest of your day with your family. And yeah, man, I appreciate you. Thank you.
Much respect always, Sid. You enjoy yourself too, brother. Have a great rest of your Sunday, bro. Recover, drink some water, bro. Get some water back in that system. Hydrate. But you're young, so you'll be all right. You got a ways to go. You got a ways to go, bro. I don't mean that in a demeaning way. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you, like people told me, like, oh, you'll see when you're older. That shit ain't gonna be like that. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Bro. I don't know what you're saying. And then I got older, and then I'm like, oh shit, they were right. Learn from my mistakes, brother.
That's funny. All right, Mitch. Appreciate you, brother. We'll stay in contact.
Thanks, always, man. 100%.